when the negative effects of stress are weighing us down, it's like carrying a backpack that gets heavier by the minute. Too much stress can make our journey through life really difficult. When you experience those negative effects of stress, you need to bring back the balance in your life by increasing your ability to cope, decreasing the stressors, or ideally a combination of both. In my daily work as psychologist, I primarily work with people struggling with stress, anxiety, and depression. And the tool that I want to share with you today is one that I often use for my clients struggling with stress. It's the 4A model of stress relief. If you want to know more about stress in general or how to spot the symptoms of stress, then I do have a couple of other videos about that on my channel. I'll make sure to link them in the end card. If you're unsure if you're stressed, then I recommend you watching this video. But for now, let's dive into this tool that can be a really good addition to your stress management toolkit. So this 4A model gives us 4 different strategies that we can employ in different stressful situations. The 4 A's of stress management are to avoid, alter, accept, or adapt. Let's have a closer look at each of them. The first A in the model stands for avoid. Believe it or not, a lot of time we can completely avoid the situations or the things that are causing us stress. This is particularly true for a lot of the minor stresses that tend to cause people problems. By planning ahead or rearranging our surroundings, we can often lighten the load a bit. Here are a few ways that the first A of avoid can help us reduce stress. The first one is to take control of our surroundings. So for example, if traffic on your morning commute is insane and causing you stress, then you might be able to leave earlier or go a less traveled route. If you hate waiting in line and you get stressed out by the many people in the corporate cafeteria, then you might want to pack a packed lunch that you can eat at your desk or in the break room. Another thing that we can avoid to decrease stress is people that bother us. For example, if you have a coworker who irritates you or causes you stress, then try to put some physical distance between the two of you. In the same way in your private life, if you have people around you who drain your energy, try to work it so that you don't spend more time with them than you absolutely need to. The third way of avoiding stressful situations is to learn to say no. It's really important to know your own limits in terms of when something becomes a stressful situation. I meet many people who find it difficult to say no, so they end up caught up in a lot of activities that they don't actually have the energy for. Knowing and respecting your own limits is the first step in order to be able to actually say no. By learning to say no, you can cut down on some responsibilities and demands on your time and energy, and therefore decrease the amount of stress you experience. And finally, there might also be some expectations that you have for yourself that you can dial down. If you tend to create long to-do lists, then make sure to label each of the activities on the list with an A, B, or C, depending on the importance of the task. This means that on hectic days, you can cut down on the workload by scratching the C's or maybe even also the B's from your list. Avoiding some tasks by simply not doing them will drastically reduce your workload. Now, there's obviously some problems that can't be avoided just by planning ahead or changing your priorities. For those, let's try a different technique. The second A of the model is to alter. When stressful situations can't be avoided, behaviors, communications, and time management may need to be altered instead. The first way we can do this is by respectfully asking others to change their behavior. If you're finding that someone else's actions or behaviors is having a negative impact on your mental well-being, it's perfectly acceptable to give them that feedback. Of course, it's really important that we're also open to receiving the same kind of feedback from others. This ongoing feedback is what allows us to alter our behavior and avoid things snowballing out of control. You see, what typically tends to happen is that if something small is left unsaid for long enough and it keeps growing and building inside us, it'll end up leading to something much more significant and problematic. We can avoid this by addressing issues as soon as we realize they have a negative impact on us. Another way to alter stressful situations is to communicate our feelings openly. It's important that we only speak from our own perspective when we do this, and that we use I in sentences rather than pointing fingers and saying you. For example, you could say, I feel frustrated with the shorter deadlines and the heavy workloads. Is there something we could do to balance that out? By only speaking from your own perspective and using I statements, you're avoiding blaming the other person. Another way to alter situations where you feel stressed is to look at your own way of managing time. For many of us, there's great potential in reducing our stress by managing our time better. We can often group small or similar tasks together and increase our efficiency. This results in more free time and less stress. Another way we can alter stressful situations is by setting clear boundaries when working with others. For example, it can be a good idea to state time limits in advance. So instead of getting frustrated and annoyed with a colleague who's talking too much about irrelevant things taking away your precious time, state beforehand that you've only got 5 minutes to cover this topic. This will set the boundaries and the expectations of the conversation clearly, and it'll free up your time. The third A of the 4A model is accept. Sometimes we may not have a choice but to accept things the way they are. Here are some things you can try out to help you accept your circumstances. First up, it's important to talk to someone about how you're feeling. Call a friend, get a coffee with a relative, or schedule an appointment with a therapist. You may not be able to change a frustrating situation, but that doesn't mean that your feelings aren't legitimate. Often you'll experience feeling better after talking it out. A second important point of acceptance is forgiveness. It takes a lot of energy to be angry, whether it be with yourself or with someone else. Forgiving can sometimes be difficult, but by doing so, you free yourself from spending a lot of negative energy, and that frees up energy you can use for other things. Another important point of acceptance is to practice positive self-talk. It's really easy to lose our objectivity when we get stressed. One negative thought tends to lead to another, and suddenly we're stuck in this negative thought spiral that we can't break out of. Try reframing your thoughts to being more positive and more realistic. So for example, instead of thinking, I'm horrible with money and I'll never be able to control my finances, try thinking, I made a mistake with money, but I'm resilient and I'll get through it and learn from it. And that leads us right into the fourth point of acceptance, which is to learn from your mistakes. There's great value in recognizing teachable moments. You can't change the fact that procrastination hurt your performance on that last assignment, but you can take that learning and make sure to set more time aside next time. Most mistakes and setbacks hold really valuable learning opportunities. Hold on to a growth mindset and see every single mistake you make as a step towards improving. The fourth and final technique from the 4A model is to adapt. Thinking that you can't cope is one of the greatest stressors. That's why adapting can be really helpful when dealing with stress. One of the things we can do to adapt to a situation is to adjust our standards. Perfection is impossible, and striving for perfection can cause feelings of frustration and guilt. Adjusting our personal expectations can reduce stress. Another way of adapting is to practice stopping negative thoughts. As soon as you realize you're having negative thoughts, try to stop them and replace them with more positive ones. Often we can find that we replay a stressful situation over and over again in our heads, causing us to feel even more stress from it. By being aware of this tendency and focusing on thinking more positive thoughts, we can reduce the mental load. Another way to adapt can be to try to reframe the issue. Try looking at a situation from a new viewpoint. Instead of feeling frustrated that you're home with a sick child, see it as an opportunity to bond, relax, and maybe finish that extra load of laundry. Generally, it's a good idea to shift your focus onto as many positive aspects of your life as possible, rather than getting caught up in the negatives. A final thing that we can do to adapt in a stressful situation is to try and look at the big picture. When you're in a situation that you find really stressful, try asking yourself if this will matter to you in 5 years. The answer is most often no. Actually, we'll often see that the situation might not even matter to us in a week from now. But right now, when we're caught in the stressful moment, it seems like it's the most important thing in the world. Changing our perspective and realizing that maybe the situation isn't that important can make it feel that much less stressful and less overwhelming. So facing stressors, whether they be good or bad, is a natural part of life. Practice applying these techniques to balance your stress equation. These simple 4A's can get you through most stressful situations that you'll face in life. And with practice and experience, it'll become easier to choose the right one for each situation. I upload new psychological insights, tips, and tools on this channel every week, and they're all aimed at helping you improve your mental well-being. If you're not already, I'd love for you to subscribe so we can meet again. Thank you for watching this one. Take care, and bye for now.